During the off-season, most NBA players are usually out in the summer league, traveling around the world or just chilling in their fancy houses or yachts. Some NBA players just go around partying like wild animals. But there are a few guys who find themselves spending their off-season just eating anything and everything, and not balling. These guys are what you call fat. We're not going to sugarcoat it because we're afraid if we did, they'd just eat that too. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the fattest players to ever grace the game of basketball. Starting off is Hall of Famer Charles Barkley. Barkley is often regarded as one of the greatest NBA players to never win a championship, but the Hall of Famer dealt with a lot of criticism concerning his weight during his illustrious career. Barkley's weight, combined with his amazing performance on the court, earned him the nickname the Round Mound of Rebound, before he even became a professional basketball player. The most famous news about his weight is perhaps how he wanted to use his weight as an attempt to force his way out of possibly being selected in the 1984 draft by the Philadelphia 76ers. He did, however, end up getting drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers. Despite all the noise about Barkley being big and heavy, he found a way to use that weight to his advantage. After all, you can't be 6'4", skinny, and think you can succeed against the likes of David Robinson, Karl Malone, Shaq, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Hakeem Olajuwon, who all have a massive height advantage over Barkley. During his time with the 76ers, Barkley developed into one of the best talents in the country, and one of the most exciting players to watch as he played center despite being listed as 6'6". He would bring the ball up the court and was extremely talented offensively. However, before Barkley was drafted into the NBA, he weighed 300 pounds, and had to lose about 20 pounds in order to be drafted into the NBA. One of the biggest stories of the 2019-20 season was the emergence of the 2019 top draft pick, Zion Williamson. There were initially a lot of skeptics about him due to all the noise and fanfare around him, even before he got to the NBA. In fact, Zion is the most talked about and widely followed high school player since LeBron James. And so when he finally made his long-awaited debut, Zion wowed everyone, proving that it wasn't all noise. This boy has got some talent. However, we haven't been able to see Zion's full potential, and one of the reasons is something you might be able to guess: his weight. In the NBA, Zion is listed as 285 pounds, making him the third heaviest player currently on an NBA roster. But there are rumors that claim that Zion might be well over that. Some reliable sources say that Zion's weight is about 300 pounds now. In high school, Zion weighed just 175 pounds, and he was in peak condition, and a sight to see for everyone that saw him play. But fast forward to 3 years later, Zion had gained more than 110 pounds, going up to 290 pounds at only 6'6". Make no mistake, Zion is a once-in-a-generation talent, and his skill set is beyond amazing. But if he continues with this excessive weight gain and doesn't work on his diet, he's going to have a career plagued with injuries. And we've already begun to see that trend already. In his first season, he missed the first 3 months due to injury and was placed on restriction when he returned. Long before Zion Williamson, there was Stanley Roberts. The name, of course, has faded into history, and many people probably don't even remember the name. And that's just a testament to what happens when you don't exactly accomplish much in your career. Your name, along with your career, just fades away, hiding somewhere in the pages of history. And that's the case with Stanley Roberts. Back in the days when the game of basketball was dominated by big men, Roberts was the center on the Lower Richland High School's back-to-back state title team from 1986 to 88. At this time, Roberts was 7 foot tall and was weighing 285 pounds. When he got into the post, he had this great drop step move and a great set of skills that made him appear like a ballet dancer on the court. This made it difficult for people to defend him, and if 2 people went in on him, he would pass it back out, providing an assist. There was even a time when Roberts and Shaq were teammates under coach Dale Brown at LSU, and the two giants would go head-to-head against each other every day in practice, and almost everyone thought that Stanley was going to eventually grow up to be the better player of the two. But of course, that didn't happen. Roberts missed the deadline in 1990 to apply for the NBA draft, and he would go on to play in Spain. When he returned back to the US, it was one workout and then one steak and potato dinner after another. His weight blew to 325 pounds and his draft stock tumbled. At the end, he was selected 23rd pick in the draft by the Orlando Magic, but his career from there just never got going. His idea of a balanced meal was a Big Mac in each hand, and he would come to training looking in far worse shape than he did the night before or the month before. He was always having corn dogs, hamburgers, hot dogs, pizzas, and 2 a.m. meals. By this time, Robert was weighing 345 pounds, and because of this, he suffered multiple injuries during his 9-year stay in the NBA. Not only did Stanley miss games through injury, he was also banned for violating the league's drug policy. He smoked weed throughout his time in the NBA. Glenn Davis is another player who can explain to Zion his own experience with weight and how weighing 290 pounds can have an effect on the body of an NBA player. Popularly known as Big Baby Davis, he was known for the combination of his weight and basketball skill. In college, Davis managed to win the hearts of many people, playing as a mobile and versatile player who happened to be well over 300 pounds. After college basketball, Davis was selected 35th overall in the 2007 NBA draft by the Seattle Supersonics. but he was shortly traded to the Boston Celtics, with whom he won the 2008 NBA Finals. Davis was deceptively quick for his size, and moving at that speed with his size put a lot of strain on his body. He eventually broke his metatarsal bone and ankle, which ultimately ended his NBA career. There's a legend that teenage Big Baby David got in a wrestling match with the then 325 Shaq at an LSU camp, where he lifted and slammed the former Lakers player to the ground. Well, Shaq would never admit to it, but you choose what you want to believe. Like most of the names in this video, Robert Traylor was a big man. He was 6'8" and weighed about 300 pounds. Traylor, who later became popularly known as Tractor, was a basketball talent out of the University of Michigan. However, he never lived up to expectations when he made his way to the NBA after starting his career with the Milwaukee Bucks. Traylor's basketball career came to the limelight when he played college basketball at the University of Michigan. He played 3 seasons for the Wolverines and had a very strong third season. In that season, Traylor was explosive, averaging 16.2 points and 10.1 rebounds per game. He was later drafted 6th overall in the 1998 NBA Draft. However, shortly after he was drafted, it became clear that Traylor would not become the star that everyone had hoped he was going to become. He constantly battled with weight problems throughout his career, and as a result, he found it hard to keep up with the pace of the NBA game. In 2005, Traylor had surgery to fix a problem in his aorta, a surgery that ultimately cost him a shot at making the Nets roster that offseason. 6 years after his debut in the NBA, Traylor was later found dead in his apartment in Puerto Rico in 2011. He was just 34 years old. If you watched the Celtics play back in the 90s, then you might remember Big Bam. Funny enough, Thomas Hamilton is mostly remembered for forming one of the most imposing front lines in high school basketball, rather than his career in the NBA. After dominating in high school basketball, Big Bam enrolled for college. But because of his bad grades, he actually couldn't get into college. In 1994, he declared himself for the draft, and 17 teams sent their guys to watch his workout, which ended up in a disaster. Around this time, Big Bam was weighing about 400 pounds and left everyone shaking their head. Due to this, he ended up not getting drafted, and although he did get an opportunity with the Raptors because of his Chicago ties with Isaiah Thomas, it didn't work out. The Celtics ended up signing Big Bam. The reason for this was simple, and that's because despite his weight problems, many people believed that his skill level was close to that of Shaquille O'Neal's. He had one of the softest touches for a big man, unbelievable big hands, and a shooting range that was outstanding. The question, however, was whether Hamilton was ready to take that next step and pay the price to become a star in the NBA, which he never did. Big Bam ended up sitting out most of his first season, playing only 11 games. After that season, Big Bam never featured in the league again for the next 3 seasons. Big Bam later returned to the NBA in 1999 when he was signed by the Houston Rockets. He played only 22 games, making 7 starts, but he was eventually released by the Rockets after spending some time on the IR list. During his time at the Rockets, Hamilton was popularly known as Two Sandwiches. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the most dominant NBA players, and during the late 90s and early 2000s, there was no player in the NBA as dominant as Shaq. Shaq was a monster, weighing over 395 pounds when he won his 3rd title with the Lakers in the 2002 Finals. And really, that's how most players in the NBA know Shaq, but a lot of people often forget that when the Orlando Magic drafted Shaq with the first pick of the 1992 NBA Draft, he looked nothing like that massive monster most of us grew up knowing. The 7'1" phenomenon arrived in the NBA weighing less than 300 pounds. And to be honest, Shaq looked kinda skinny. During his Orlando Magic days, he would run down the court like no person standing at his height could. He could dribble the ball up court, jump to insane heights, and pull some moves on the post as quickly as anyone. And then Shaq left Orlando for the Lakers, and that's when he began to transform into the big Shaq we all know today. The transformation was slow and gradual, and by the end of the 1999-2000 season, Shaq was nothing like the skinny man that came to the NBA. At this time, he was weighing 341 pounds, and by 2003, Shaq had gained in excess of 370 pounds. It's sick that Shaq was playing a huge number of games with that amount of weight, because having that kind of weight puts a lot of pressure on your knees. Despite all that, Shaq averaged 27 points and 11 rebounds per game in a regular season. So why did Shaq gain so much weight? Shaq made the decision to add weight after his first championship with the Lakers. According to him, he wanted to be heavier because he felt that massive centers like Luke Longley and Arvydas Sabonis were pushing him around in the low post. So he more or less concluded that if he was heavier, he would become totally dominant, and no one would be able to push him around anymore. So he instructed his chef to overload his meals with potatoes and meat, and that's when the pounds began to accumulate. While this sounded like a bright idea to Shaq, being that heavy came with its consequences. First of all, that massive weight meant he was putting a lot of pressure on his body, especially on his feet, which suffered the most. And it ultimately cost him his place in the Lakers team following massive confrontations about his weight between himself and Kobe Bryant. Shaq was having a burger, cheese, meat, and fries almost every day. And during summers, when everyone else was at the gym trying to prepare for the upcoming season, Shaq was spending his summer anywhere but the gym. His mindset was that he would play himself back into shape. So Shaq would turn up for training after the holidays in terrible shape. And at the end of the day, his occurring weight issues was the major factor why he had to leave the Lakers in 2004. Despite being overweight for a significant sum of his career, Shaq remained dominant as a low-post beast for many years. There's no question about Shaq's legacy, and the Lakers themselves have discussed retiring his shirt number at some point in the future. But you can only wonder how far in history books Shaq would have gone if he kept himself under 300 pounds for his entire career. Shaq is the most dominant fat NBA player in the history of the game, but Shaq isn't the biggest NBA player the game has ever seen. That title goes to Oliver Miller. And just to give you a clear idea about just how fat this guy was, I want you to realize that 375 pounds is heavier than your average panda bear. And this guy was bigger than that. Just imagine you trying to defend someone that's bigger than a bear. The Big O, as he was popularly called, began his career at Arkansas, where he played for 4 years before signing his first professional NBA contract. During his time at Arkansas, everyone loved Oliver and he was a terrific player, helping them earn an 83% winning percentage. Oliver was later drafted into the NBA by the Phoenix Suns, and around this time, Oliver weighed about 300 pounds. Getting drafted into the NBA was supposed to be the beginning of great things, but that's when things began to go opposite for Oliver. Oliver was a fantastic player, and if not for his weight, he would have been drafted a lot higher than he was. He was also going into a Suns team that were among the top favorites to win the championship that year. So you could say there were a lot of expectations around him. His first season went pretty well as the Suns almost made it to the finals, and his second season was even better because he was averaging more points in games that season. He even had a 32-point game against the Timberwolves, and it seemed like the future was going to be bright after all. However, in the second part of the season, he began to gain more weight, and his minutes, as well as productivity on the court, began to dwindle. Because of his weight problems, as well as a rape allegation against him, the Suns didn't offer him another contract, and he was allowed to leave. From there, Oliver just bounced from one league to another, and at some point in his playing career, he was weighing 400 pounds. Oliver was talented enough to play at the highest level, but because of his weight problems, he became another player in the league that could have become something, but ended up as nothing. Comment below to let us know your thoughts, and be sure to subscribe for more. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss another one of our videos. We'll see you next time, latest Hoops fans. Until then, keep shooting your shot!